Hey then, welcome to another episode of Seenu. Today, as the title of the video clearly states, we are going to be working on, come on, yeah, there we go, the Harvard Fueling Station. I forgot what the title of the video was for a second there. Basically what this means is that we're going to be creating a big facility right next to the airport. This is one of the things that we needed in order to complete the whole island where the airport is, that one in the back that you see there. We're not going to be finished in this episode. I'll tell you that right now. We still have to expand the hangar section and put the air traffic control tower and all that. That's going to happen in future episodes. But in this one, I just want to sort of finally wrap up this corner of the island where there's going to be a lot of tanks and oil storage elements, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, before I go through what I'm doing here, there's a couple things that I wanted to talk about that I have written down here. So first of all, scheduling. I've been getting a few comments about why I'm not posting Seenu that often, as opposed to how often I used to post, for that matter. There's a couple of reasons for that. I kind of talked about this in previous episodes, but lately I've been kind of like burnt from Cities Skylines a little bit. I don't hate the game or anything like that, but since the last update, the Green Cities updates came out, obviously had to put down the game for a while, wait for mods to be fixed, and I kind of started playing other games, and I realized that I was having more fun playing other games for a little while. So you probably saw me post more GeoGuessr videos lately. I did a live stream for this other game that, right now it's in early alpha, but it's called Machinki, which is, a new version of Transport Tycoon, and so on and so forth. So by no means I'm saying, I'm not going to do Seenu anymore. I'm just going to abandon Cities Skylines. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just trying to take this a little bit slowly, because lately I've been, haven't been having a ton of ideas on what to do. I mean, I know exactly what projects we need to do to finish this, but, I wasn't feeling creative enough to be able to accomplish it. And this one is an exception. I did have a ton of fun, sort of laying down this project. But, like halfway through it, I was not feeling it. And I really just didn't want to rush anything and just post a half-done episode kind of thing. What you see here is something that the end result of this I'm actually pretty happy with, and I think you're gonna really like how this whole area came out. I've been sort of teasing some screenshots up on Twitter, and if you haven't followed me there yet, you should totally do that, because that's kind of my blog. That's how I update, things in general. If there's changes in schedule, if there's a new series starting, or, if I'm just feeling generous and I want to share some screenshots of what I'm working on, Twitter is usually the place where I do that. So twitter.com/strictoaster. You can check it out over there and follow me. Now, after this shameless self-promotion, another thing that I wanted to talk about is future episodes. Actually, you know what? I haven't finished my monologue about my creativity and all that. There's one more thing that I want to talk about that. So what I'm planning on doing in the next couple of weeks until because this happened to me many times in my life. It's like almost pretty much the same thing, where I'm like not inspired, and then I have a good couple of weeks that I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do everything, and I'm like way more productive, and I achieve better results, I guess. I'm sure this is it's kind of like swings that come and go. Eventually I think I'm gonna return to my original schedule, which was videos weekly, basically. Also timing doesn't help at all, because I've been busy with other things as well, but I'm guessing within the next couple of weeks, I'm just gonna do videos like every other week, or every week and a half, something like that. I'm not gonna stop Seenu for a while or anything. I'm gonna keep going, but the frequency of those videos might not be as fast as they used to, at least for a little while. We'll see how that plays out. And we still have a lot to accomplish. In fact, I've been thinking about doing another couple live streams where I did maintenance in general, because there's a lot of repetitive tasks that we need to accomplish in this project. And those are better suited for a live stream. So I'm gonna try to schedule that. And if you're like a really hardcore Seenu fan, at least, well, you can watch those during such live streams. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about, now changing subjects slightly actually, because this is somewhat related. Lately I've been talking to Flux to see if what's his availability. Oh, that's a difficult word for me. Availability to finish the resort that he started a couple episodes ago. He's we're trying to like sync our calendars, so hopefully we can get that wrapped up soon. I can't promise any specific dates, but let me I'll definitely tell you right now that I'll give you a heads up so you can go watch that at his channel. Hopefully, we're kind of aiming for like within the month, but it could take longer than that depending on how things go. But I'm really looking forward to him finishing that, because I kind of want to see how it turns out. And finally, the last thing here on my list is green cities. So obviously I haven't posted any videos related to Cities Skylines since the last update. Every time a new DLC comes out, I get the same questions all the time, like, oh, what do you think? I'm like so pumped for green cities, and like, are you gonna play green cities or Snowfall, or any other of the other DLCs that came out before? I guess the short answer is no. I haven't even gotten the DLC, and I probably won't get it unless I get some like review copy by Paradox or Colossal Order. And the main reason is because I really don't play vanilla. Like all those DLCs just add more vanilla features and like goals and objectives that I never play with. Basically every time I play Cities Skylines, I consider this. Someone said in a comment, it's like you're playing a living diorama, and that's pretty much what I do in this game. I really don't care about handling the population of the city or doing anything like that. So all these green city, like specifically with the green city DLC, like there's nothing there that interests me all that much, aside from maybe good looking buildings, but. I've seen some like decent assets released in that DLC, so I'm not like totally against it. The problem is that they're riddled with vanilla props, which makes it. I'll have to like retrofit them using Ultimate Eye Candy, or no, sorry, not Ultimate Eye Candy, but that's a different mod by the same developer. But Prop It Up. Was it Prop It Up? Yeah, Prop It Up is the one that gets rid of certain props. So, it's basically a lot of work for a few assets that I may or may not find useful in general. I do like the addition of the new props. There's a whole bunch of new props, but I think those are showing up in my Find It search results, even without the DLC. I've never bought it, so I'm just guessing. There's a ton of like new vanilla vines and trees of many kinds, and those are accessible using Find It. So I guess I don't really need to get the DLCs. We'll see. I don't think all of the content is available that way, but some of it is, so that's good. In fact, there's a couple of interesting updates that were released during the last DLC launch, and these are free updates, mind you. So whether or not you bought the DLC, these are updates that you can actually use. One of these new features that I'm really excited about is the ability to create custom roads. So the way this works is now if you go into the asset editor, you can, the same way you could select a building and use that for your base sort of building functionality. If you wanted to use like a pier, right? And I'm actually going to talk about that in a few moments. Piers, exciting stuff, and ferry lines. So for example, you can grab a segmented road, and you can start stripping out the different lanes. You can put a tram tracks. You can add your own custom props or even decals on it. So you can pretty much create any type of road you want, similar to what we were doing sort of manually by putting decals and props over roads so far. You might now be able to just create muddy roads like the ones I use in Seenu. I've been kind of trying that. It's still a little bit finicky, and I honestly didn't spend quite that much time figuring it out. I think it's doable, but it will take a while because there's a lot of. I created a segment of road that's this ruined texture that you see there, and I put the mod decals on it, but they kind of overlap and they do a lot of sea fighting, so it didn't look great. I think if we do a little bit of tweaking, you might be able to get it right. Unfortunately, I didn't have time. I really needed to get this video out, but I do see a lot of potential in that. In fact, I see enough potential that might render some other mods a little bit obsolete. So mods like, let's say, network skins, or even what's the other mod that like network extensions, or even Roast United. You might be able to not need those modes anymore, which, I mean, they're great mods, don't get me wrong, but some of them haven't been updated in a while, and some of them are actually kind of finicky, or a little bit buggy, or they're just not very well, for whatever reason, not optimized. So the ability to do all these things, in a vanilla kind of way, it's something I really like. Now, another feature that I'm really interested in, and I'm not quite sure how it works. I haven't really tried it yet, but and also this is probably a problem that not many people have, but it's something that comes out every time I have to do collabs. For example, let's say with Flux, and when I needed to send all the files for Seenu. It's what we do is basically we have a collection, we create collections each, and then we just link them at the bottom. The problem is that you can't really unsubscribe or subscribe to everything at once. You really need to basically subscribe to every single collection separately, which, it's not a huge deal. But there is now an option, and this is in the content manager as far as I know, where you select your save game, and there's a button now that basically downloads every single asset, I think, even mods, if I'm not mistaken, that were used during the creation of such save game. So I need to test that out a little bit better, but I'm really, really excited about things like that improve workflow. I don't think they're bulletproof in the sense that there's just still a ton of local files that I have to deal with, settings files for that, specifically with Rico, or well, I can't remember exactly right now which other mods have settings files, but I know Rico is one of them. In any case, I don't think this really solves that issue. I still have to manually upload all these files to some Google Drive or something like that. But I'm really, any like workflow features that make creating or doing work type stuff easier, I'm really, really happy about. So let's switch gears for a moment, because it's been like so far it's been like 30 minutes and I haven't talked a single thing about what I'm doing. I guess I briefly talk about what I'm doing at the beginning of the episode, but I think for the most part it's pretty self-explanatory. So there's this whole area by the in the real life version of Seenu, by the way, just by the airport, that have some tanks, and it has a long pier with some pipelines that, as far as I can tell, they connect to some sort of a device that allows ships, oil tankers for that, to sort of connect to those and provide the fuel necessary for the island to work. So in this case, we're building this massive facility. Well, it's actually not that massive. In fact, what seems to happen is that the area in front of those larger tanks, it's almost as if they were going to build a couple more, and they either run out of money or they realized that they didn't need it. So I kind of left the shape of the never constructed tanks right in front of them. I used the new circle function from Propline tool, and they came out great. I just filled them with trash and overgrown weeds and bushes, and I think it really brought everything together. The other tanks, even though they're like totally fenced, I decided to sort of shut down the roads in between them using those Jersey barriers. And in my mind, I figured like, okay, so they put together the roads thinking that they're gonna have a lot of not a lot of traffic, but just like maintenance trucks driving pretty much everywhere around this tanks. But they later realized that they needed to put more pipes, so they sort of shut down those roads, left them for maintenance only. There's some little, staircases that, some steps that go up and down so that workers, can get to, both sides of the tanks. I know I'm saying a lot. I know that. I am very aware of that, and I can't help it. So that's just going to be that. I apologize for that in advance, but it's I'm trying to record this commentary took a long time. I had to, I mentioned this before. Keep saying, I mentioned this before that sometimes when I struggle, I keep stopping and re-recording over and over again. This is one of those times. I just can't English properly today. I'm not very articulate in my descriptions, so hopefully you will apologize. I will apologize for that, and you will forgive me for that, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, this whole area, it's overall pretty simple. In fact, I'm pretty much done now. I couldn't talk a whole lot about it. And, I think it's pretty self-explanatory what that's about. And what I'm doing here is I'm creating a bit of a breakwater barrier. So, I try to, I keep saying, I'm sorry, I apologize for that. The narrowest road I could use to get these breakwaters to look a little bit more realistic, because I think in real life they're a little bit narrower than this. The pedestrian road that's a 1 tile long, it's a little bit too big, I think, for what it is. I think we need something smaller, but I couldn't figure out any other ways to raise the land, tall enough that I can only have rocks around it without the road. The road pretty much brings the terrain up to the level that I need, and unfortunately that's the narrowest road I have. It's not the end of the world. It's not super thick. It's gonna make more sense once I'm done putting all these rocks, but you can already tell that it's pretty wide and maybe should have been a little bit narrower. So I ended up coming with a semi-solution to that problem. You're gonna see in just a moment when I get rid of the concrete and put some decals in there that kind of make one whole cohesive wall of rocks in another sense. Now this is where things get a little bit more interesting. So what I'm doing here, by the way, is I'm using my DIY docks, and I'm being asked over and over again, well, not really over and over again, but by a couple of people in the Steam Workshop particularly, when I'm going to release if I'm going to release a version of my DIY docks for ferries. Because I remember, if you remember correctly, I forgot how to language. I released those before the mass transit update, which means that all these new features weren't a thing, so I couldn't account for them. And I haven't had the necessity to update those docks until now. So now that I was working on a new harbor, I realized that I wanted to have some passenger service between the islands using local lines instead. I know I can use that. I have a mod for that still works fine. That basically creates the same functionality. I mentioned this a million times, but I figured it'd be nicer and more convenient to just simply use the tools that the game allows. So I went into the asset editor, imported the same model, and just started creating 3 assets. There's 3 assets that come with ferries. One is the ferry depot, the other one is the ferry stop, and the other one is the ferry pier, if I'm not mistaken. The ferry pier and the ferry stop, they just have this invisible mechanic that simulates people boarding. You can actually see this wooden dock in the over there. There's a whole hidden path that whether the model supports it or not, people will go through it, which is really annoying because the whole point of my DIY docks is that they're just very plain and simple, and I was expecting people to just line up on the concrete area of my docks. So that didn't happen. People started boarding when I put down my own version of the ferry pier, by the way. People started boarding right in the middle of the floating over the water, which obviously didn't look realistic at all. And I decided to, keep the depot DIY concrete dock, which it's actually the one that's right next to the the ferry stop I think I used there, and decided to sort of use the vanilla ferry stop for that matter, which actually is a very nice looking asset. I have nothing against it, so I figured, hey, this works. Let's just keep that one in there, and let's just see how everything plays out. And I was happy with the results, so I left it there. Now, I'm still testing things. I haven't posted my DIY depot dock in the workshop yet. I'm hoping I'll do that at some point after I keep testing, and also if there's enough interest in that. You can let me know in the comments if you're really interested in that, and if you really want it, because the ferry depot is the one that it's totally like not fitting the theme, because it's a huge building, and it just doesn't look like it belongs. Now, before I talk about that, I do want to mention this other thing right here. So the main problem that I have with all these vanilla assets is that they come built in with a road. And I specifically don't want that road there, or at all. I don't want any roads maybe, but I'm forced to have roads. So what I figured out is that I can use that sort of the same trick that I used for that bridge several episodes ago, where you simply drag another road segment on it. In this case, I used the large concrete road. And using Move It, I kind of overlaid it over that vanilla segment of vanilla road that comes attached to the building, and it came out great. Not only that, it also like all the decals and everything stick to that one instead of the bottom one. So as you can see, it's kind of almost seamless. You barely can tell that there's another type of road down there. And obviously, with the decals on top, it makes it even harder to see what is down there. But I loved it. I think it came out great. And I'm going to be using that a lot in many areas, especially if I need to use more of these assets that have the roads attached. Now, what I'm doing here, by the way, is I decided to rearrange the way ship lines worked around the island. And this started as a test, but they came out great. Last time I did a change like this was when I was working in Cedar Valley, where I changed the lines that connect to the edge of the map, and it kind of like screwed everything up because I had to replop every single pier for that matter. This time around, that wasn't a thing. I think they either patched that, or I don't know what it is, but all these ship docks got immediately updated, and they started using the proper connection, the new one, I guess. So the main reason why I changed that is because they were too close to the shoreline. They do look very realistic, and especially around this breakwaters, they were like literally on it basically, and that didn't look great. I wanted some separation, and and now it kind of looks like almost like a straight line that goes into the different docks. So it's just all about making it look a little bit more realistic and less like video gamey like the vanilla game usually does. Now for some reason the pillars get a little bit buggy when you're using network scans, so I decided to just get rid of them and just plop down my own custom pillars and use those instead. In fact, I'm just adding some lights here to just adding the final touches to this whole area. For the most part, it's it's a pretty simple build. It doesn't have anything too crazy, just adding a few details to sort of make all these separate builds that we did across many episodes come together much more nicely. And I'm going for this sort of yellowish theme around this area, trying to obviously use concrete brushes to hide every one of those sprites of grass from coming out. By the way, one thing that really bugged me about all these ferries is that even the vanilla ones, using the vanilla docks, still clip the crap out of everything every time they part. You're going to see that in the cinematics coming up in just a few moments as we're almost done here with this episode, but it's so annoying. I thought that was like fixed with mass transit. This is the first time I'm using ferries, by the way. Now that we have the mod that allows you to get rid of the buoys. So I haven't tried that before, but I realized, oh man, it was kind of disappointing that ships still clip through the buildings when they are departing. I don't know why they did that. They could have like changed the way that worked a little bit. I'd made some adjustments, but yeah, maybe in a future update we'll see that fixed. I don't know. In regards to these dogs, all I'm doing here is just adding a few more of these to just details in general, there's a few of the ferry props, signs and things like that I decided to put down pretty much across the whole area. And at the tip of these breakwaters, I put those buoys, kind of like so that they will look like beacons for the most part, or like fog horns, stuff like that. I wasn't super happy with those, so I decided to delete them. And what you see me here is just trying many different kinds of assets that would pass as fog horns or something like that. There's a few near where I live, and I'm trying to like sort of replicate that design, even though I'm going a little bit overboard with them. I use that air conditioning equipment and that sort of cell phone tower, but I didn't want to literally copy that and paste it on the other side. I wanted to keep things somewhat asymmetric. So first of all, what I'm doing here is putting a red light and then just copying partially that and not necessarily everything, the whole system together, because one could be a communications device and a foghorn, whereas I just wanted the other one to just be a foghorn or just a beacon that alerts ships as they approach this breakwater so that they don't hit it. And I decided to sort of conclude that with the cement sidewalk that kind of matches those decals that are not really decals, they're like models, those concrete ones that I now remember that I got rid of them because they were a little bit intense for that whole area. But just adding the final touches here to make this breakwater to look a little bit more detailed than what it is. That road is definitely way too wide for my tasting, but I couldn't figure out another way to make it a little bit narrower and sort of keep the same shape overall across the entire distance of the breakwater. But for the most part, I'm so excited about how they came out, and I would like to let you enjoy some cinematics, and hopefully if you like them as much as I did, maybe you can leave this video a like. That's very much appreciated. That also will help a lot. At the same time, if you're new to the channel and haven't already, I would like to encourage you to click subscribe and also the bell icon so that you get notified immediately after one of my videos comes out. In the description, you're going to find the link to the full playlist in case you might have missed an episode. But that's all for now. I would like to thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one.